Hi, everyone. I am here with Jason Parente, who happens to also be my husband and the father of my kids. But I'm here with him actually for the sake of the Clean Slate program that I created a couple of years ago, really to support my clients in resetting. One of the things I realized, and I don't know if that was your experience with coaching as well, is that oftentimes when people get started on coaching, they have to manage some very, very basic things in their lives. Like they need to create some room to absorb the coaching and to be able to change the habits that they're needing to change in order to have the results that they want. So I'm here with Jason, and I'm with Jason especially because he's one of the things that he does is financial coaching. And I thought it would be wonderful to have a conversation about finances and money and people's relationship with money and how the heck we can do a reset in a time like this.
Awesome. So it's really important when you want a clean slate, when you want to start creating something, to build that foundation. That's usually what people are missing, especially in finances. Everybody wants to be the millionaire. Everybody wants to make lots of money. Everybody wants to have a better job, get a promotion, right? But before you're able to do that, you got to make sure that your foundation is clear, that your foundation is strong, such that if you do get a new job and it's more demanding, you don't fall down, right? Or if you start your business, and it might take a little bit of time before your business skyrockets, that you have the foundation that can hold that, going on for a little bit of a time, or just keep you reminding yourself of what you want to create, etc. And that foundation is, I've experienced, at least with the people I've worked, both in financial coaching and even in business coaching, often lacking. It's not a very strong foundation.
Yeah. Good. I love that you're saying that. Let's backtrack a little bit. In my experience, especially during the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, oftentimes people are so excited. I mean, in a training and development industry, personal development industry, or transformational environments, people are often really like wanting breakthroughs. They really want to have great lives. They want to be positive. All of that is true, right? And then it comes down to, okay, they want to get coaching and they want to take a service, and boom, like it's almost in a conversation, you can feel it deflating right away, because what comes next is like, yeah, but I don't have money for that. And I noticed that's really, really disempowering. And, I struggle with that even as a coach, because, there's just, with 2 kids that we have, there's got to be a minimum amount that I need to be able to receive in order to just maintain my own finances. Right. So what would you say to people what is the first thing you would say to people who would want something, and then they obviously have this issue, this challenge?
Right. So the first thing is you got to check if that's true, or you believe it to be true.
Okay.
Which is not the same thing, right? So people will say stuff like, I can't afford it. I don't have the money for it, right? And yet they have $200,000 in investments in their 401k. So the truth is, I actually do have the money in that example. I just don't want to spend it for that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's telling the truth. And then that gives you power. Because you're really saying, hey, I prefer to leave that money there rather than spend it on this. Right? But most people don't do that work. They get stuck with their belief about whether they have the money or not. And they won't do the work of actually being very clear about what money they have or they don't have. And what money's coming in and not coming in. And has my financial situation actually increased in the last 3 months compared to 3 months ago or not? And once you do that work and you're clear, and by the way, that the thing about money, which I love, is that it's all numbers. It's mathematics. And the only way you can lie with numbers is if you're on purpose not adding them up properly. Otherwise, they just, like, the story's there. You know, you had X amount in January, X amount in February, X amount in March. And is it higher? Is it lower? And that's how you come about that reality, that truth that I'm speaking about.
No. We have 2 kids in the house, so I think they're having a bathroom break. But let's keep going, right? I mean, there's a lot in what you're saying, so I'm even trying to wrap my head around it, right? Because on one hand, there's this notion of, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs try to bring up the value. I mean, in my experience, prior to pandemic, in a previous paradigm, if you will, people would often work really, really hard on pumping up the outcomes. So as they say, like, you know, from hell to paradise, and what does paradise look like? And, you know, and then, you know, they tend to like let people know, oh, you know, you're in this hell of like, nothing is working, etc. Then buy my product and then you'll be. So I think that's one of the things that people are dealing with and finding the answer. So how do you, I don't even know what I want to ask about that. But I think that speaks to, you know, I think that oftentimes people say yes or no, or don't quite say the clear no, is because there might be like a confrontation, if you will. Because if somebody's letting you know that they have an answer to something and you say, no, that's not right for me, there's a lot of like shaming happening in that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what I mean. And then if I want that thing or that result, and I'm saying no to that potential avenue for it, right? Then am I saying no to that result to myself? And we get all right. So I've dealt with that personally, and I've coached a lot of people, especially in the world of real estate investing. And you'll get the analogy in a second, right? So here's, you know, there's this house and you can buy it at a rebate because the owner wants to get rid of it, and it looks like a perfect deal, right? Great deal. We're going to make lots of money. Really excited. But for some reason, you know, you wanted to put $30,000 in the property, but now you got to put 50,000, and you weren't ready to put 50,000, and now you're trying to stretch it, and it doesn't feel good anymore, right? And I will often tell people, don't worry about it. Like, just if it doesn't feel good, don't do that deal. But what if there's no other deal like that? What if I lose? But it was such a great deal.
Scarcity.
The scarcity, exactly. And I've learned in real estate, and sometimes I've dealt with the same thing. I see this deal and I want to get in, and I'm trying to make it work, and you know, and it's never a good idea to go in there. And the principle, I guess, the context that I've built around that is there's always another better deal out there. Always. And it's so true. I mean, it's very true in the world of real estate investing, but it's true in the world of personal development.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is there's what we see right now. There's what I see today. So today, maybe the only deal in front of me is that one deal. So I'm going crazy because I only see one deal. But part of the reason why there's only that one deal is because it's the only one I'm focusing on as well, right? True. If I say, hey, that deal's not for me, and put it aside, and then you start looking, then you'll see other avenues to accomplish that same thing you want to accomplish. Yeah. So you can't overstretch yourself in finances. I mean, you got to have your limit. And if the limit to get into a real estate deal or to get into a course is a certain amount of money, if it goes beyond that and you're uncomfortable, it's just not going to work, because you're going to pull that energy of discomfort into it. You're going to pull exactly that energy of maybe I shouldn't have. And every time something goes wrong, it's going to be a reminder for, I knew it, I shouldn't have done this, right? Yeah. And then you won't get the value.
I get it. So, okay, so because oftentimes for people to get some kind of a reset, they need to invest even more. Yeah. That's almost like, you know, oftentimes you have this 30-minute conversation with somebody, and then they say, if you want more, if you really want me to help you, then it costs money. So I really, with my commitment with Clean Slate and these videos that I do and interviews, my commitment is really to give people something that they can start with that comes right now for free. Yeah. So what would you say to people? Here is somebody who had like a really tough year. You know, the pandemic is happening.
Mm-hmm.
They may have lost their job. They might have kids, and public schools are, in and out being, with COVID. What would you say, like, what would be the first step? They already know they have debt. They don't have work, and the bills are coming and piling up. Like, what's something that you would tell those people who are in a really, really tough spot right now?
So I'd go back to getting clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to know what your truth is. And by the way, and this is a tough one, and there's been times in my life, and I've coached clients that have so much debt that, whether it's 400,000 or 375,000 occurs, is like, who cares? It's so much. But you want to know that truth. Like, what is the exact number? And it might be painful, but it's there anyway. Like, it's there. So you got to be willing to go there and look at it.
So the first step, right? So the first step is to just get flat on how much you owe, how much you have, how much is coming in, how much is coming out.
Exactly.
Just really have a reality, which,
That's number one. Okay, now, once you have that, if you're in the red, so if you're not making enough money, right, then you gotta figure out a way to bridge the gap.
So you gotta get a job.
You gotta get a job. You gotta do jobs. You gotta look for opportunities. You gotta, be asking people what you can do to help. You gotta look at your skill sets and try to sell that.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have a question, because this is what really comes up. I've seen it happen with so many people. What if people know that they can take that job, but it's like feels so toxic to them? It feels like draining. They don't feel like they can do it at all. Would they take even that job because they're the most qualified for that? Or how like, what would you say to people? I know what I would say as a coach. I would work that through if somebody hired me to do that. But what would you say right now?
I'd say that it depends. It depends. It depends how deep in the hole you are.
Okay, say more about that.
Right? So if you're, if you just fell in the well and you've been in the well for 1 minute, and somebody's like, well, you just got to climb, you'll be fine. I'll wait for a cord. I'll wait for the firemen to come in, right? But if it's been 10 hours and it's raining, you might not care what's given to you at that point, because you want to get out of the well. So it depends how deep you are. So if you're just, if you just lost your job 2 weeks ago and you're just okay and you still have some savings, then maybe you're not going to want to take the crappy job that from the get-go you're going to hate, and you're barely going to make it. And that's, I don't think that that's an issue necessarily. Now, you got to be working at getting another job, right? You're not on vacation. If you're operating like you're on vacation, then there's a problem. That's a different problem.
Yeah.
But that's the thing right now. If you've been, without a job for 6 months, et cetera, even though you're going in an environment or you're going to do a job that might not be your optimal career or your preferred career, what happens is the moment you start doing something and getting money, and you see your bank account growing or not going down as fast as it used to go, it creates a different shift for you. And part of the reason sometimes people have difficulties getting the kind of jobs they want or building their business the way they want is also some version of stress, personal stress, because they don't have the money and it's coming in, or simply lack of confidence. So getting into a job, even if it's not your preferred job, but it's a job you can do, or it's a job that doesn't require all of your needs, get in there, do it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, have it increase your confidence, have it bring money while you look for the next thing, use it as a stepping stone to the next thing.
Great. So that will be the next step, to get some kind of a job, something to do so the money can keep on coming in. And I, because of all the work that I do, and I'm a Reiki master and I do family constellations and I do a lot of spiritual work as well, I tend to view money as energy. So it's about having the energy flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So say somebody gets something to patch them up, like some kind of a job. What will be the next step? Like, how do they fix their finances from huge debt to now some sense of freedom? Do they try to pay it off all at once? Or how do they chop it up so that it's manageable?
Look, this is something you might have to speak to your accountant or your CPA, CPA, your financial advisor, etc., because everybody's situation is different, right? But you got to create a plan that works for you. And what matters is that this month you're better off than you were last month. If you look at 1 week or 2 weeks, it's too short a time span. And the rent is one time a month, and and you get paid twice a month, so it's kind of weird, right? But if you look at it month by month, if you look at it on every first of the month, which is what I do personally, I look at my finances is every first of the month. That's my barometer, not what happens in between, because in between it'll go up and down. But on the first, that's where I get to compare where I was last month to this month and where I was last month. What matters is, in the end, that this month, I'm better off than I was last month.
Mm-hmm. What about months like February that are like shorter and people have to pay the same amount of rent?
Doesn't matter. What matters is on March 1st, I was better off than on February 1st. Mm-hmm. Some months are longer, some months are shorter. In the end, over the year, it balances out, right? And some months where you got to pay your car insurance and some months where you don't, right? Over the year, it balances out. And you might have ups and downs, right? So you can't freak out, because the month of March, you're a little bit less rich than you were, February. That's, there's a pattern to it. You'll see patterns. If you start following your money month by month, you'll see a pattern throughout the year and in general, right? And you want to make sure that, you're richer or your debt is a little bit lower than it was last month. And then if that's happening, then you're in the right path. You're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And now, once that's the case, you want to look at, okay, how do I have it go faster? How do I grow it more or, decrease it more depending where you're looking at?
Yeah.
Right? And that's really the next step, fourth step, I think we're at now, right? Which is once you know that you're in that right path, you want to look at ways to forward it, go faster, right? Do you need to decrease your credit card interest rates? Do you need to take a different loan would be lower interest rates? Do you need to look for a different job or a better job?
Reduce expenses.
Do you need to reduce expenses?
Yeah.
Do you need to start a second job, or a business on the side to bring in some extra money? And there's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different ways that people can do that. So it's a matter for you to look at what you know to do, or what you can do, and start with that. And the mistake is people want to go from 0 to 100 in a month, and it doesn't work like that. It's really something that you build over time.
Yeah.
And it's a momentum, like if your boat was sinking for a while, okay, first you got to patch the holes, which is what we talked about. And then it still takes time. Once the holes are patched, then you got to take the water out. And while you're taking the water out, the boat ain't moving. It's still like at that sinking level. And then eventually the water's coming out, and then you start moving again. And that takes time. And every person is different. I've had clients that had so much debt. They just, like, every time we talked about debt, they would just cry. I mean, half of our coaching calls were them crying on the phone because, they could barely just look at the numbers. And over time, they started looking at the numbers, and they're starting paying it off, and started creating a plan of putting a little bit aside to pay off the debt, putting a little bit aside to save. Oh, there's something else I could say that's really important that I strongly believe in. I don't believe in the whole put all your money into debt or put all your money into savings. If you have debt, you should save and you should pay off your debt. And you should figure out which percentage, but both should happen. And the reason is that when you pay off your debt, if you owe $125,000 and it goes down to $115,000, most people will be like, so what? I still got $115,000 of debt. But to see I have $120,000 of debt and $5,000 of savings feels much better than $115,000 of debt. And that, like, all of a sudden you start feeling good about yourself because you start realizing I'm saving as well. I'm creating wealth at the same time as paying off my debt.
Yeah. Great. And I want to ask something that, again, like, I'm coming from what I often hear people say.
Absolutely.
I noticed that oftentimes people, like, how much people owe, like the debt that people have or how much they're making, it so defines people. And of course, you and I have both done ego deconstruction work, and we get it from the soul level and stuff. But what would you say to somebody who hasn't done the work? Like, how do they shift their relationship to money to even be willing to look at the steps that it takes to recover from their debt and to actually start making the money that is not mere survival, but actually something that they really, that gives them what they want?
Yeah. It's a good question. So again, this is something that takes time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you do in a 20-minute call or a half an hour, video. But it comes down, first of all, is to you need to know the truth again about what your money is.
Mm.
And
The
that's the
truth
truth.
shall set you free.
Exactly. That's really what it is. Like, that's the truth. The truth is, I owe $112,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Do you know what I mean? That there's nothing else.
There's no meaning.
There's no, like, that doesn't say anything good or bad about you. Heck, millionaires owe so much money.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the richest people in the world, they owe so much money at the same time as they're the richest people in the world for a lot of them, right? So it doesn't mean anything. You're the one who's saying 112,000 is bad or is good, right? If I say, okay, I have $100,000 of debt, people can say, well, that's bad. I say, yeah, but it's a mortgage on a $20 million home. Same $100,000 of debt,
yeah.
But you see how the context shifted? What do you think, it's good or bad?
Context decides.
Exactly, yeah. Right? And you get to say what the context is. When I had way too much debt, and it was all credit, not all, but it was credit card and line of credits debt and stuff like that. One of the contexts that I created was that, okay, this is what I did to learn how to manage money. That's what I needed to do. I needed to get there. So I learn and I get really good at it. Right. And, so you got to look at it as numbers, purely as numbers. Like, the amount is 1,000, it's 10,000, it's 200,000. And some numbers are scary because they're so big compared to some other number. And I get that. And, if I have a firm belief that if somebody has a commitment to pay off all their debt, to get a new job, to better their financial situation, it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
It requires commitment, it requires patience, and it requires the diligence to, go up and down. Because getting out of a financial situation might look like you go down and then up, right? But when it's going down, it doesn't feel necessarily like you're going up.
Yeah.
Like you're going to go up eventually. So you just got to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And I've had clients who are now, richer than they've ever been. They have their house. They're just so happy with their financial situations. And when I started coaching them 5, 6, 7 years ago, I mean, they were in dire straits. It was like horrible. They had spent so much money, and they spent so much money on what they consider completely stupid things. So they, on top of it, felt really bad
about themselves
that they got themselves there.
Yeah.
But that's what it required. See, if they didn't have that breakdown, they didn't have that issue occur in their life, they wouldn't have learned. Managing money wouldn't have been important. And because it became important, because they got there, now they're in a place where they're managing their money smartly. They have more money saved today than they had in debt then.
Yeah.
They have a house. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you need to go through that, that
I really get it. We've been there.
We've been there, right?
We've been there before. I mean, we're already engaged, I believe.
Yes.
But I had debt previously, which I had to consolidate. And then when Jason and I got engaged, Jason had the credit card debt, and we got out of it in a year and 4 months. And actually, most of it is credit to you, because I felt I wasn't there to create that debt. So I would hold you to account, but you really did the work. And what inspired me the most about it is this notion of basics, like do the basics, like just manage properly. And it's almost as if, again, I speak about it from a spiritual perspective, but it's almost like you get rewarded for doing the work. Absolutely. In some ways.
Look, it's no different than anything you're committed to, whether it's, being healthy, having muscles, being good at chess, being good at a video game, you know what I mean? Whatever it is that you want to be good at, it requires time and effort and diligence. And managing money requires that. Now, a lot of people get scared of managing money. or it occurs as impossible. And it's not. It's just little by little, slowly by slowly. It's my thing. I say that all the time for some reason. You know, just you do something today, and then you do something tomorrow, and then you do something next week, and it just adds up. And eventually that adding up, you know, it's like that $2 you save, and that $10 you save, and then $100 you save. Eventually you got $5,000. Eventually you got $10,000. Eventually you got $50,000. And you know, then you can buy a house, and then, you know, you can grow into it. So it's the mistake is believing you can't.
Yeah, and I think also the mistake is oftentimes we all want more money. I mean, I don't know about most people watching, but everybody always wants more money.
Yeah.
But I often have even this feeling like, even if I got millions of dollars right now, I actually wouldn't know how to manage it. I wouldn't know how to make that money work for me. Mm-hmm. So I really like learning some steps and actually being a good money manager first, and then receiving more as it comes. Absolutely. Great. Is there anything else you want to say for the Slate community?
Yeah, there's, you know, when it comes to money, there's hundreds and hundreds of gurus out there and websites, and, you know, if there's somebody you like their flavor, you like what they're saying, it makes sense, follow them. Mm-hmm. Do what they say, but do it. Like, do exactly what they say. Do it all the way. Do it for 6 months, a year, 2 years. You know, it's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change in a week, most likely. So, you know, just follow through, and then, you know, make sure you're checking your score. Make sure you're checking, you know, am I doing better this month than last month? If I have debt, is my debt lower than it was last month?
Yeah.
You know, am I richer? Do I have more money than I had last month? And if so, great. You know, continue looking at how to increase that. And if not, you know, all right, what can you do? And start looking at that. And it's as simple as that. Really, it's as simple as that. But people get afraid of doing that work or don't know how. And it's okay that you don't know how. You were never taught. If you were taught, you wouldn't have been in that pickle. That's what it comes down to. So just be willing to learn it and be willing to go forward.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
I hope this is really helpful. Again, you know, to reset in any way, it's always the first step to creating something. So, you know, I know that money can have so much impact on how we actually feel about ourselves and all the stories we make up about it. But what I'm hearing from Jason and what affirms my knowledge is, you know, first step is like really just get flat on what you have, what you don't have, how much is coming in, coming out. Get acquainted with your finances if you want to do anything about it. Right?
Yeah. Fall in love with the world of finances. It's a lot easier that way.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
All right.